I've been having a blast with Assassin's Creed Shadows since it released, but there are quite a few things the game doesn't do a great job of telling you. So today I've put together 17 tips and tricks I wish I knew sooner in Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've broken these tips up into 4 major sections: combat, exploration, progression, and stick around to the end of the video for the bonus quality of life section with 3 bonus tips that I think you're gonna love. Starting off with tip number 1, in Assassin's Creed Shadows there are 2 main characters, Naoe and Yasuke. They play very differently in this game, and one of the things you'll notice early on is Naoe has this great ability where she can tag enemies using her eagle vision. You can spawn into any of the castles or forts in the game as Naoe, run in stealthily, tag all the enemies using your eagle vision, and then run back out, do a quick character swap to Yasuke, and you'll find that all of the tagged enemies are still there. So you can run in, guns blazing, swords blazing, whatever, and you're ready to kick butt and know exactly where every enemy is. Try it out and let me know what you think. Moving on to tip number 2, weak point damage. You'll see on some of the tooltips in this game from weapons and skills, they call it this weak point damage that made no sense to me. Maybe there was an early tutorial in the game that I just missed. Weak point damage is what happens when you proc the vulnerable state on enemies. So you'll notice sometimes when you perfect parry or perfect dodge or perfect block, depending on what character you're playing as, you'll see time slow down and enemies will glow orange, and that means they're in the vulnerable state. At that point, you can hold down your light attack button until your blade glistens, or whatever weapon you're using glistens, and when you release that, that's like your charged light attack, and that applies weak point damage on a vulnerable enemy. This is an awesome way to get bonus damage in the game on demand, basically, so get really good with your timing on perfect parries, dodges, and blocks, and you will be good to go. The last combat tip I have is about a specific skill on the skill tree. So when you're playing as Naoe, you'll notice that sometimes in forts and wherever you're raiding, there are enemies clustered together, and that can be frustrating because it's hard to assassinate properly. An awesome assassination skill that you should pick up as early as possible is the double assassination, and it allows you to use your daggers to assassinate 2 enemies at the same time as long as they're close enough together. It's a great way to clear out camps and not have to worry about taking out one at a time, obviously. And if you have any questions about how to unlock specific skills or rank up your skill trees, check out tips 16 and 17 where I go into detail about all of that progression. Moving on to my exploration tips, tip number 4 is about seasons in Assassin's Creed Shadows. So this is a system in the game that I think is really awesome, but the game does not really tell you this. They just sort of mention seasons and you see these cutscenes happen and you're just like, okay, I guess it's winter. But there's a lot more to this system than I initially realized. Getting the easy stuff out of the way, there are 4 seasons in the game: summer, spring, winter, fall. But all of these seasons are broken up into 2 chunks, which means that there are actually 8 seasons in the game. All that really means is there are 2 springs, 2 summers, 2 winters, and 2 falls. You can track the progress of the current season you're in by going to the map screen and checking the progress little compass thing at the top right of the screen. Seasons will only change at the halfway point and the full point of the progress bar going all white. So if it's empty and kind of grayed out, that means that time hasn't passed yet. It will slowly start to fill with like a white glow. But importantly, seasons don't progress past their halfway point or into fully new seasons unless you fast travel, complete a mission, or manually progress it when available. So if for whatever reason you want to stay in the current season you're in, just don't fast travel, complete any missions, or obviously hit the actual manual button for progressing the season either, and you'll be good to go. What's also super cool about seasons is they kind of change the dynamics of gameplay depending on what time of year you're playing. So a great example of this is in winter and certain types of weather like rain, you'll find enemy patterns are different. When it's really cold out, enemies will huddle around fires. When it's raining, enemies will hide under awnings or inside of buildings. It's really cool to see this dynamic shift in the gameplay and how to approach different forts and anywhere else you're trying to get into in the game. It's a really cool way to shake up the gameplay in Assassin's Creed. I've really enjoyed it now that I'm understanding it a little bit better, and I hope that helps you too. Next up, let's talk about kakuregas. What a fun word. So kakuregas are mini versions of your hideout across the map. They're like little fast travel points. You can refill supplies, refill scouts, you can change your loadout, all kinds of stuff. The cool thing about kakuregas is when you discover them, they come up as a gray icon on your map. You don't have to unlock them right away, but if you want to, you need to spend coin. If for some reason you're out of money, but you want to still unlock that kakurega, you can actually go anywhere you want on the map to get that money you need from a contract or a quest or whatever you're doing, and you can unlock it from across the map and then fast travel there to get right back to whatever you were doing. Next up, a tips and tricks video would not be complete for Assassin's Creed without talking about viewpoints. You know? Just like every other Assassin's Creed game, there are viewpoints all across the map that act as fast travel and like discovery points. There's a mechanic in Shadows that prompts you to observe and look around 360 to see all of the new POIs that you've unlocked on the map. I was worried that you had to actually look at all of these different things to unlock them on your map, but you don't have to at all. Just unlocking the viewpoint is more than enough to add those things to your map. So don't worry about craning your neck every which way and finding every little thing. It's added to your map automatically. Tip number 7, pathing in this game, that is getting to your objectives, is a lot different than the rest of the Assassin's Creed games and really just different than a lot of open world games in general. The landscape in this game is much more mountainous and obstacle filled than anything else I've played as far as an open world. You're almost certainly going to run into a mountain that you can't climb or some sort of obstacle that you just weren't anticipating. So the best way to move around is to just follow your Pathfinder, and Ubisoft just released a new update that has an auto follow road button. So when you turn on Pathfinder, you can auto-follow road and just cruise, baby. Okay, let's talk about the hideout for a second. Whether you love this feature or not, this is your base of operations. You can design it and put things together however cosmetically you please. But if you don't care about that, I still recommend coming back to the hideout and upgrading it early and often. And a quick little bonus tip here, the first thing I recommend unlocking is your rank 2 of your stables. So if you go over to your stables building and select the upgrade menu, you'll see there's a second rank, you need some resources, but if you look at the description there, it actually reduces the cost of tagging resources in the open world for your scouts to smuggle back to your base. And especially early game when you don't have a lot of scouts, cutting the cost of that smuggling from 2 scouts to 1 is a huge upgrade. So I really recommend starting with that one if you're focusing on base upgrades. And speaking of scouts, if you're wondering about how to unlock more, one of the best ways to do this is to unlock them through the study building in your hideout. If you upgrade that twice, you get 2 extra scouts. But there are also a few quests throughout the game that by completing them, you unlock more scouts. Tip number 10 is my last tip on scouts. A big one. What the heck do you use scouts for? There are a few options, and they're super valuable in this game, especially if you're playing in non-guided. So we already talked about tagging resources. When you're out in the open world, there are these big blocks of resources that you can tag, and then a scout at the end of the season will bring that back to your hideaway, and you can like use it for whatever you want. But they're also super helpful at reducing wanted levels. So if you are caught doing a crime of some kind in the world and a certain region does not like you very much, you can use scouts to reduce that wanted level, kind of like in any other game where there is a wanted level of some kind. Another big reason to use scouts is to help you find locations of objectives. So oftentimes in this game, objectives will be kind of obscured. You'll have a couple clues about where to find something on the map. Once you have a rough idea of where you think you need to go, you can drop a scout on your map and it will kind of ping that area. And if you're right about where you've dropped that ping, it will show you the exact location of that objective. And then the last thing that scouts help you do is at the end of a season, if you haven't used all of your scouts, you get a little bonus in the chest in your stables that's relative to the rank of your hideaway. So for example, if you have 4 scouts and in a certain season you only use 2, at the end of that season when it refreshes, you'll get a bonus in that chest relative to the rank of your hideaway. So it could be coins, it could be upgrade materials, it could be building materials, and at your highest rank hideaway, it's actually gear itself. So it's a really cool system to invest in if you keep ranking up your hideaway. I keep saying hideaway, I mean hideout, but like, you know what I mean. Tip number 11 is our final exploration tip. When you're out in the world, you might come across NPCs who need help. Maybe they're getting attacked by bandits or something, and when you rescue them, you can talk to them. And you have an option to choose between a world rumor or scout intel. All I wanted to mention about this is if you're choosing the world rumor, what that will do is add a point of interest on your map that's a quest or just something worth checking out. If you choose scout intel, it will replenish 1 scout of your total pool. So it's not adding a new one to the pool, it's just replenishing. So it's a free way to restock. I hope those exploration tips were helpful. And speaking of helpful, well, you know the rest. Moving on to some progression tips in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Tip number 12 is contracts are king for making money and resources, especially in the early game. So if you're like me, you probably noticed the contracts unlock and you thought, these are just the grindy classic missions in every Assassin's Creed game. I'm not gonna spend any time on these, they're not worth my time. That was sort of a mistake I was making early on in the game because these are just such easy ways to pick up resources and coins quick. They refresh every season, so that's also at the midpoint of the season too. So it's always worth picking them up when the season changes to just be flush with cash and resources for your hideout. Next up, tip number 13, it's a controversial one, battle passes, the projects in Assassin's Creed Shadows. So this is part of the Ubisoft Animus Hub relaunch of Assassin's Creed. You'll notice when you log into Shadows, there's like options to pick all of the different games, at least from Origins onwards, I'm pretty sure. And the idea here is there's this battle pass with these weekly quests that you can do in-game, and they put progress towards a battle pass that unlocks cosmetics, currency. There's a little store where you can exchange that currency for different cosmetics and things like that. And also there's an Assassins and Templars kind of text log story you can follow along with that's going on in the background, and you unlock that as you progress the battle pass as well. Maybe you love battle passes, maybe you hate them. I just wanted to call it out how it works. You can pick up those quests. Those quests in-game, they're at the very top of your objective board. By completing them, you get this XP that contributes directly to the battle pass, and then you unlock things like currency that you can then spend in the store of the battle pass. Love it or hate it, it's there if you're interested. Tip number 14 is all about engravings in this game. So think of engravings as like enchantments. Once you unlock the forge at your hideout, you can go there and there's a menu called engraving. The main thing I wanted to call out with engravings has to do with legendary weapons. So they by default have an engraving already on them, but they also have a second slot that's empty until you add something there. As you play the game and you clear castles and forts and find chests and stuff, you will unlock new engravings. So it's always worth coming back to that engraving menu to see what you can add to your legendaries, or really any of your gear for that matter that accepts engravings. It's things like vulnerable damage, weak point damage, adrenaline generation, so make sure you're always coming back to see what the newest, latest, and greatest engravings you've unlocked are, in case they're really good for your build. Tip number 15 is a fun one. So on your skill trees, you'll notice you have 6 of them in total. They're all kind of split out. And they're a lot cleaner than other Assassin's Creed games, which I do appreciate. One thing I didn't notice on these skill trees is at the very bottom, the first node at the bottom of the screen when you select into any of the skill trees, there is a passive bonus you get for committing certain numbers of points in that skill tree. So there's different breakpoints like 5 skill points, 10 skill points, so on and so forth, and they just add flat bonuses to something in your arsenal. And on the topic of getting stronger through skill trees, I wanted to take a moment and talk about knowledge points and knowledge rank, because these are separate but related things. Honestly, the system is a little bit convoluted, but it is very straightforward once you know how it works. So knowledge points are a progression currency that you unlock by completing those orangey bronze activities across the map. There are some for Naoe and Yasuke, so it's always worth doing those if you have time. Once you collect a certain number of knowledge points, those contribute to your knowledge rank, and your knowledge rank is basically the bottleneck for how high on your skill tree you can climb. The point is, by doing knowledge point activities, you are progressing your knowledge ranks, which in turn allows you to unlock better and higher rank skills. And that leads me to tip number 17, which is about mastery points, which is the currency you use to actually unlock the skills on your skill tree. These are unlocked every level. You get 1 mastery point, but certain activities and quests also unlock mastery points too. The point is, you are kind of passively collecting mastery points just by playing the game however you want, so you don't really need to think about it too much, other than make sure you're always going back to your skill tree and spending it when you have them to spend. Okay, moving on to the bonus quality of life section, starting with tip number 18. So when you're out adventuring, you might find yourself away from your hideout for a while, and you're using the same piece of gear because you like it, but after a few levels, you've kind of outgrown it. But maybe you want to keep using it. You can go to the blacksmith and continue to level it up and match your current level. So one thing to make note of is when you're in the upgrade screen, there's actually an option to multi-level a weapon. So if you have 5 levels to close on a certain piece of gear, as long as you have the resources to match all 5 of those level upgrades, you can just press the trigger on your controller 5 times, and then if you hit upgrade, it will immediately level you to the highest level possible. Tip number 19 is a cool little trick anytime you're trying to save but are unable to do so. If you go into your menu and you unequip and equip something in your inventory, it forces an autosave. So for whatever reason you're finding you can't save wherever you are, you can just use this to force an autosave, and you're good to go. So tip number 20 is about transmog. So in this game, you'll find there's a ton of gear you get showered with, and a lot of it you just don't need. You might really like the look of something though, and you might be worried about dismantling it. So all I want to call out is if something has dropped for you and you dismantle it, you keep that transmog appearance. So there's no reason to not dismantle it for the resources if you don't need it. The look of it maintains in your catalog, and you can use it whenever you want. And hey, if you've enjoyed these tips and tricks, check out this video right here where I talk about how to enjoy bad video games in 2025. I think you're gonna love it. I'll see you there in just a second. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dylan. This is Beep Boop Loot. We'll see you in the next one.